Hey guys, Joel's coming at you with another reasoning session, and today I'm going to be talking about the 4 rules of winning that we as humans have, but that source breaks every time.
Come now and let us reason together. Come now, we can talk it over.
So today I'm going to be drawing from the story of Gideon. This story comes from the book of Judges, which is after the children of Israel enter the promised land, but before they actually establish any sort of kingdom for themselves. They're basically just local tribes at this point, and there are local people that rise up and help keep them, above water from the enemies that are surrounding them. And one of those guys was Gideon. But let's read straight from the text and find out just what these 4 rules are. So we read in the 6th chapter of Shophtim, or the Judges, "And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of Yahweh, and Yahweh delivered them into the hand of Midian 7 years." Now here we're talking about Yahweh, and if you followed some of my other videos, you know that Yahweh is the facet of source that exemplifies cyclical justice. Whatever you put out is what you get back. And so since Israel did all this evil, they had to reap that harvest. And that is what we see in the world today. That literally sums up how source run things. As you do to others, so shall it be done to you. And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel. And because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made them the dens which are in the mountains and caves and strongholds. So they literally had to hide from these people. And it's funny that they're called Midianites because in our current day, who are we fighting the most? The Midianites. And so it was when Israel had sown that the Midianites came up, and the Amalekites and the children of the east. Even they came up against them. Children of the east, well, what's the far east? I wonder. And Amalek? Well, that's a story for a whole other episode. Moving down a few verses, "And Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites. And the children of Israel cried unto Yahweh. And it came to pass when the children of Israel cried unto Yahweh because of the Midianites, that Yahweh sent a prophet unto the children of Israel, which said unto them, Thus says Yahweh, God of Israel, I brought you up from Egypt, and brought you forth out of the house of bondage, and I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all that oppressed you, and drove them out from before you, and gave you their land. And I said unto you, I am Yahweh your God. Fear not the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell, but you have not obeyed my voice." So that's the whole cause of why the children of Israel fell back into this persecution. But then we see that there came an angel of Yahweh and sat under an oak which was in Ophrah, that pertained unto Joash the Abiezrite, and his son Gideon threshed wheat by the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. Now that word "it" is not even in the original translation. So yes, he was hiding his grain because the Midianites were stealing their grain. But he was also trying to hide himself because, if you can tell, he wants to save his own life. "And the angel of Yahweh appeared unto him and said unto him, Yahweh is with you, you mighty man of valor. And Gideon said unto him, O my Lord, if Yahweh be with us, why then is all this befallen us? And where are all his miracles, which our fathers told us of, saying, Did not Yahweh bring us up from Egypt? But now Yahweh has forsaken us, and delivered us into the hand of the Midianites. And Yahweh looked upon him, and said, Go in this your might, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have not I sent you? And he said unto him, O my Lord, wherewith shall I save Israel? Behold, my family is poor in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." Now, Manasseh was one of these tribes, and it's one of those tribes that isn't really spoken of very much. So it's pretty low on the scale. And in his own father's house, he was the least of them. And Yahweh said unto him, Surely I will be with you, and you shall smite the Midianites as one man. So here we come to the first rule that source breaks when it comes to winning. That first rule is always choose the best players for your team. When you're in school and you're choosing players for your team, you want to choose the good guys first. You want to make sure that you have that edge that you can win the game. But Yahweh goes to the very least and says, you know what, I'm choosing you, and with you, I'm going to make sure that we tell these Midianites what for. So moving on in the story, Gideon still needs a bit of convincing, but after a while, he's convinced that Yahweh's on his side, and look at the transformation that happens to him. Verse 34, but the Spirit of Yahweh came upon Gideon, and he blew a trumpet, and Abiezer was gathered after him. And he sent messengers throughout all Manasseh, who also were gathered after him. And he sent messengers unto Asher, and unto Zebulun, and unto Naphtali, and they came up to meet him. Those are just other tribes of Israel. And Yahweh said unto Gideon, the people that are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, mine own hand has saved me. Now therefore go to, proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and afraid, let him return and depart early from Mount Gilead. And there returned of the people 22,000, and there remained 10,000. So we see that from 32,000, 22 were just afraid. And you know what's more of a miracle than that? I honestly think that it's those 10,000 that remain, because think of it. If you're part of a group and over two thirds just walk off and leave, you might have second thoughts and wonder, am I doing the right thing by staying here? And that brings us to the second rule that Source breaks when it comes to winning, and that's accumulate as much as you can. We live in an egotistic world that's based on materialism, where it's all get. It's like the more you have, the more you win. It's kind of like he who dies with the most toys wins. But Source doesn't think that way, and Source really looks at the character of someone, and that character can supersede, even the numbers that come against that. And moving on, we see this exemplified again, but that will also bring us to the third rule that Source breaks. And Yahweh said unto Gideon, the people are yet too many. Bring them down unto the water, and I will try them for you there. And it shall be that of whom I say unto you, this shall go with you, the same shall go with you. And of whomsoever I say unto you, this shall not go with you, the same shall not go. So he brought down the people unto the water, and Yahweh said unto Gideon, every one that laps of the water with his tongue as a dog laps, him shall you set by himself. Likewise, every one that bows down upon his knees to drink. And the number of them that lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300 men. But all the rest of the people bowed down upon their knees to drink water. And Yahweh said unto Gideon, by the 300 men that lapped will I save you, and deliver the Midianites unto your hand, and let all the other people go, every man unto his place. Now, I'll be honest, when I read this story in my childhood, this part really didn't make sense. I wonder, what does that detail even matter? Who cares whether you're, cupping the water to your mouth, or you've got your face in the river? What does that have to do with fighting a battle? I never really understood it until one day I was out golfing, and I'd just taken my shot, but then it was my friend's turn at the tee, and you know what? We were in the mountains. It was really great, and there was a creek that was going by with crystal clear water, guys. Fresh mountain water. So I thought, you know what? While he's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get me a nice drink, get some refreshment in. And so I went off, and I was going to literally stick my face in the water, but then I remembered, my friend's not a really great golfer, so, I might want to pay attention. And I found myself cupping the water, watching, being aware, being alert. And that's what this is all about. The third rule that Source breaks is not to sweat the details, but it's often the devil that's hiding in those details. And Source knew what he was talking about. He wanted an army that wasn't just not afraid, but that was watchful, that was vigilant, and that was looking out for the enemy in case of an ambush, in case of anything coming up in battle that was unexpected. And so the people took victuals in their hand and their trumpets, and he sent all the rest of Israel, every man unto his tent, and retained those 300 men. And the host of Midian was beneath him in the valley. Now moving on further in the chapter, he divided the 300 men into 3 companies, and he put a trumpet in each man's hand, with empty pitchers and lamps within the pitchers. And he said unto them, look on me, and do likewise. And behold, when I come to the outside of the camp, it shall be, as I do, so shall you do. When I blow a trumpet, I and all that are with me. Then blow you the trumpets also on every side of all the camp, and say, the sword of Yahweh and of Gideon. So the Midianites and the Amalekites were in the valley, and there's literally like ridges of mountains all around. So he divided the hosts into 3 companies of 100, and basically like a triangulation shape. And he said, whatever you see me do, just do likewise. So Gideon and the 100 men that were with him came unto the outside of the camp in the beginning of the middle watch, basically like midnight. And they had but newly set the watch, and they blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers that were in their hands. And the 3 companies blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers, and held the lamps in their left hands and the trumpets in their right hands to blow withal. And they cried, the sword of Yahweh and of Gideon. Now I'm wondering how they did this. Like, they held the trumpets and then they had the pitchers. Did they like do a headbutt on the pitchers to break them? I don't know. But you can imagine like what happens when you're like getting ready to rest in the valley. Like, it's midnight, it's time to go to sleep, and all of a sudden, like, pow, 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 like 300 flares come on all around you from the top of the mountain, and you hear this blast of 300 trumpets. And trumpets in those days meant like, our army's bigger, we're here and we're taking you down, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. And they stood every man in his place round about the camp, and all the host ran and cried and fled. And the 300 blew the trumpets, and Yahweh set every man's sword against his fellow, even throughout all the hosts. And the hosts fled to Beth Shittah in Zerarat, and to the border of Abel Meholah, unto Tabat. And the men of Israel gathered themselves together out of Naphtali, and out of Asher, and out of all Manasseh, and pursued after the Midianites. And that brings us to the 4th rule that Source breaks when it comes to winning, and that's stick to the proven blueprint of success. You know, if Gideon's logic got in the way, he would have said, you know what, Lord, how can 300 ever beat this, blah, 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 and he would have sabotaged his own victory. But look at what happened. Yahweh has a plan, and to this day, this strategy is still studied by strategists in warfare to actually beat the enemy when they're far outnumbered. And we see at the very end of this chapter, they took 2 princes of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeeb, and they slew Oreb upon the rock Oreb, and Zeeb they slew at the winepress of Zeeb, and pursued Midian, and brought the heads of Oreb and Zeeb to Gideon on the other side of the Jordan. So we see that when Source has a battle plan, there's nothing that can stop it. And Source usually contradicts our own ego in order to show us that these thoughts are a higher manifestation of awareness than our own egos could ever possibly come up with. You know, this reminds me of another verse when the son of Saul, Jonathan, was actually fighting a battle, and it was just him and his armor bearer, and they were up against the Philistines, and it didn't really look possible to win. But look at what Jonathan tells his armor bearer in the first book of Shemuel, chapter 14, verse 6. And Jonathan said to the young man that bore his armor, come and let us go over unto the garrison of these uncircumcised, meaning they didn't have a covenant with the God of the universe, with true source, with Yahweh. It may be that Yahweh will work for us, for there is no restraint to Yahweh to save by many or by few. And that also brings another verse in the first book of Shemuel, where David, before he becomes king, fights the giant Goliath. And David said to the Philistine, you come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to you in the name of Yahweh of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day will Yahweh deliver you into my hand, and I will smite you and take your head from you, and I will give the carcasses of the hosts of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air and to the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and all this assembly shall know that Yahweh saves, not with sword and spear, for the battle is Yahweh's, and he will give you into our hands. Again, this is the source exemplified as divine justice, where nothing can hold anything back from actually completing that cycle of what you put out is what you get back. And we got to trust that no matter what looks like the circumstances in the physical, there is a harvest coming to those that have robbed us of whatever we've been robbed from over the last year, even before that, but we have to hold it accountable before Source. Source is faithful and just and will deliver the harvest to us, because when the thief is found, he has to pay sevenfold. In fact, he will give of all the substance of his house. So we have to know that divine justice is coming, get it really into our hearts, and start acting on it. When we start acting on it, things unfold in the physical, and we actually find ourselves getting there. So stay optimistic and manifest your best life yet, not just for you, but for the sake of all of us. And we can really wake up in the utopia we knew we were deserving of all along. I love you guys. I'll check you in the next reasoning sesh. Joel signing out once again. Agape, Salaam, Namaste, Shalom.